When it comes to franchises making backroom changes, the just concluded NFL season had more than its fair share. A lot of head coaches lost their jobs. Some emotional, others not quite. Meaning a lot of new coaches have been hired ahead of the next season. And there's a pool of emerging coaching talents to select from. But which of these guys really deserve their jobs? Stick around to find out. The 2023 season was definitely one hell of a ride. Probably the most notable thing about the season is the number of teams that switched up their coaching staff. Sure, head coaches are bound to get fired every season, but no one saw this many changes coming in a single season. First, let's dive right into the heart of the drama, spotlighting those who ended up in the hot seat and ultimately out of a job. And we're kicking things off with the less shocking bombshells, like the Las Vegas Raiders parting ways with Josh McDaniels. It's the kind of move that had some of us nodding in agreement, seeing it coming from a mile away. Now, we don't mean to hate on McDaniels by saying his letting go wasn't a surprise. After all, the dude had 2 decades worth of NFL coaching experience. He's one of the few who can boast of being a part of the Patriots team that won 6 Super Bowl championships during the Brady-Belichick era. Here's the thing though, most of his success and experience in the NFL had come as a defensive coordinator, not as a head coach. The only time he got to lead the coaching team was during his brief and pretty disappointing spell with the Denver Broncos between 2009 and 2010. We all felt him getting a chance to lead the ship was long overdue, but apparently we were wrong. Finishing with a 6-11 record in 2022 was underwhelming for the Raiders, but they stuck with him, hoping he would turn it around. Sadly, he couldn't. Losing Derek Carr didn't help much, and the Raiders still had the same issues of ending games poorly, which meant he had to be let go in October 2023. If there was any surprise when the Carolina Panthers let Frank Reich go, it's that they let him stay long enough to get an embarrassing 1-10 record. Los Angeles Chargers and Brandon Staley are parting ways too. Same story. You know what? Crazy as it sounds, Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks parting ways just might also fall under the unsurprising category. Yeah, he had 14 seasons with the franchise, in which he got to the playoffs 10 times, won their division 5 times, made 2 consecutive Super Bowl appearances, and won the franchise's first championship in Super Bowl 48. Definitely a successful run. But in the last 2 seasons leading up to him stepping down, you could see Pete had lost the juice. Or maybe his team lost their quality. Either way, they were signs of an era coming to an end. You probably remember everyone being surprised when it was announced that the Seahawks would be sticking with him after that disastrous 2021 season. Finishing 9-8 the following year wasn't impressive either, and having the same record in the 2023 season just proved Carroll's successful Seahawks era was over. So as much as it broke our hearts to see such a run come to an end, you can't deny that the signs had been coming. The same can be said for the end of the season sweepout, with Arthur Smith and the Atlanta Falcons, Ron Rivera, the Washington Commanders, and Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans all parting ways. What no one saw coming, however, was the Bill Belichick era coming to an end. Or maybe we saw it coming, but it was just too difficult to imagine. Not just because of how successful Dollar Bill had been with the New England Patriots, but also because about half of the entire NFL fanbase has never seen what the league is like without Belichick in it. Oh, and if you don't want to see YouTube without Sportivations, make sure you subscribe. It was obvious the Patriots were finding it difficult to adjust to playing without Tom Brady after their Super Bowl 52 triumph. But a 12-4 record in 2019 and 10-7 in 2021 were glimpses of what Belichick could do without the GOAT on his team. The 2022 season wasn't as impressive, but deep down, we all felt some miracle would happen, and Belichick could turn it around. The miracle never came, and after an all-time low 4-13 regular season record, the most successful coaching tenure in NFL history came to an end. More on that later. With all the furniture being shifted around at many teams, the question became, who's up next? And we've got to give credit to the executives of all these franchises, because in just a matter of weeks, all these teams have gotten new head coaches. The Patriots have brought in Jared Mayo. The Seahawks brought in Mike Macdonald, and Dave Canellis has taken the head coach role for the Carolina Panthers. The Raiders, the LA Chargers, the Atlanta Falcons, the Washington Commanders, and even the Tennessee Titans have all announced their new head coaches too. Sure, it seems like the question of the next generation of NFL coaches has been sorted out. But what if we told you there are better head coaches than the newly hired guys? That's right. No disrespect to the likes of Mike Macdonald, Brian Callahan, and Dan Quinn, but the list of emerging head coach talents in the league has a number of names we believe could have been better replacements. At the top of that list is Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. Aged just 37, Johnson is probably the most promising coaching talent in the entire NFL. From way back in his college days at Boston College, this guy had his eyes set on coaching and began practicing his trade in the NFL with the Miami Dolphins as an offensive assistant in 2012. After that, he worked as the Dolphins' tight ends coach and wide receivers coach before moving to the Detroit Lions in 2019. Over the past 5 years, we've seen him grow from just an offensive quality control coach to becoming the best offensive coordinator in the league. It's been clear for a while now that Ben Johnson deserves a head coach spot. The Lions were rumored to consider him for the job after he led them to a top 5 offense finish and a franchise 8 games over 30 points in the 2022 season. The Carolina Panthers were also on his trail, but Johnson decided to stay working with the Lions head coach, Dan Campbell. After yet another impressive season in 2023, Ben Johnson getting his deserved head coach role seemed like a no-brainer. Even the Lions players, coaches, and executives all expected to lose him to at least one of the teams who had head coaching candidates. It's not public info, but we'll let you in on this. The Seattle Seahawks shortlisted Ben Johnson to replace Pete Carroll and had him at the top of their list. But it gets even better. The Washington Commanders actually brought him in for a first interview, and it was pretty much a done deal until Johnson decided to miss the second interview and announced he'd be staying with the Detroit Lions for a third season. Johnson himself best knows the actual reason for this weird decision, but we'll tell you this: none of the newly hired coaches can deliver a high-powered offense team like Johnson would have. The only thing most of the newly hired head coaches have over him is coaching experience. Eric Bieniemy, however, has more than enough experience, but that proved insufficient in getting him hired by both the Kansas City Chiefs and the Washington Commanders. Bieniemy started out his coaching career in the NFL with the Minnesota Vikings way back in 2006 as the running backs coach and has been in the league ever since. He only took a couple years off in 2011 to coach the Colorado Buffaloes, after which he came back to the NFL, joining the Kansas City Chiefs in 2013 as first a running backs coach and then an offensive coordinator. Despite spending so much of his career as a running backs coach, Eric's best work has come as an offensive coordinator. Not only can he be credited for helping Patrick Mahomes understand NFL offenses, dude was the OC in charge when the Chiefs won both the Super Bowl 54 and Super Bowl 57. Sadly, for some weird reason, Bieniemy's impact has always been overlooked, dating back to his time in Kansas. He worked so closely with head coach Andy Reid that Reid gets all the credit for transforming a young Chiefs offense into a championship unit. Here's the thing though, since Eric moved to the Commanders ahead of the 2023 season, it's clear Kansas City's offense is missing something. However, when Ron Rivera got fired, Eric Bieniemy got overlooked again. Washington's front office gave him the courtesy of an interview, but eventually ended up taking Dan Quinn, who has a more defensive background. This decision might be understandable given that Eric hasn't succeeded in balancing the Commanders' offense in his first season as OC, but there's more to it. Inside stories in Washington have revealed that Bieniemy's high demands and tough-nosed approach that made the Chiefs formidable haven't worked with the Commanders' relatively young team. The players haven't taken it well, and since the front office observed that Eric Bieniemy isn't willing to change his approach, they decided to find someone whose approach works for the players. Now, this is a two-sided issue. Players have to be willing to work with their coach's approach to get results, which makes not hiring Eric understandable. However, this is a man who has enjoyed much success using this same system. So if you ask me, the Commanders made the wrong move by overlooking him rather than making the players conform to a new approach. Speaking of the Commanders, another alternative coach we believe should have been hired, and Washington considered hiring, is Bobby Slowik. Much like Ben Johnson, the Houston Texans offensive coordinator is a young and exciting coaching talent. Coincidentally, he started his coaching career in Washington in 2011 before joining the San Francisco 49ers, but it wasn't until 2019 that he took up working as an offensive coach. Offensive assistant and pass game specialist, the Texans hired Slowik as their offensive coordinator in 2023, and we all know what happened. Slowik was behind CJ Stroud, giving one of the best rookie seasons in NFL history. Stroud was the one on the gridiron throwing over 4,000 yards, leading the league in touchdown to interception ratio and passing yards per game. But behind all that was Slowik giving all the instructions that got the number 2 pick soaring. In Stroud's words, Slowik is very knowledgeable, can really dice a defense up, puts a lot of trust in his players, and really just never got away from what he knows. Having succeeded in only his first season as an OC, a lot of teams were looking to get Slowik and hopefully have him become a long-term franchise asset. The Commanders, Seattle Seahawks, Carolina Panthers, Tennessee Titans, and Atlanta Falcons all interviewed the 36-year-old for their head coaching jobs. The Commanders and Seahawks seemed closest to getting his signature, but Slowik ended up signing a different contract, an extension with the Texans. We don't know exactly how much the new deal's worth, but Slowik got a very enticing compensation fee to stay with the Texans for at least one more season. Given how good we know he is, and how excellent he is at man-managing offenses, Slowik will definitely be a hot cake for head coaching jobs by 2025. The likes of Dolphins offensive coordinator Frank Smith and Panthers defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero have also shown what they are capable of in the last couple of seasons, so it's a shame they didn't get hired for any of the head coaching gigs. But looking on the bright side, there's always next season, and a couple of head coaches will definitely be let go. So let's hope these exciting prospects are able to get even better at their jobs to be considered when the time comes. Want to stay in the loop and not get left behind? Imagine missing the next big story or insight because you didn't subscribe. Not cool, right? Hit subscribe, stay ahead of the game, and never experience the dread of missing out again. And hey, remember when we touched on Bill Belichick's legendary coaching career, hailed as the most successful in NFL history? Trust us, you don't want to miss out on the story of how Dollar Bill took the NFL by storm. Here's the video that dives deep into his dominance. A must watch you're sure to enjoy.